Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to see everyone who has attended. We're grateful to have you today. And actually, what this is our community engagement effort. We're trying very hard in the PCD department to answer questions that a lot of the public has, especially in regards to business licenses. So we're starting this one off. This is our Business License 101 workshop. We're going to briefly go through some of the requirements and how to submit the application. We're going to also give you an opportunity to ask as many questions as you have that times allow. So we'll get right into it. I would like to share my screen and get into the presentation. Is that good for everyone?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so let's start off with, once again, we're going to discuss what is a business license in regards for the city of East Point. We're also going to discuss when is the business license required. We're going to look at the application. We're going to look at how do you submit it and how do you renew. Let's jump right into it. What is a business license for the city of East Point? All right, there's a sample there behind this. This is ultimately what you want to achieve. This business occupational tax certificate, sometimes also called a business license. But basically, the East Point business license legally authorizes your business, whether it's home-based or commercial, to operate within the city of East Point. And it also has to be in accordance with our zoning ordinance and our business license ordinance. The license is issued by our business license division here within the Planning and Community Development Department. So you would come see us. When is it required? Let's discuss a little bit in our ordinance under section 5.2023. It basically states any person, form, or firm or corporation who's doing business with respect to an occupational tax that has to be assessed and has to be imposed must be issued a business license before entering into that business. So if you're doing business without the business license, quote unquote, you haven't been granted permission by the city yet. So you come to us so that we can issue you your business license. There are exceptions to this, very few. I have that over here on the right side. Government and military facilities, we don't issue business licenses to them. Of course, religious places of worship, we don't issue business license to them. And other entities that are deemed by the state law that we cannot issue a business license to. However, there still might be some regulations they have to comply with. For example, if they're occupying a space, they still might have to get a certificate of occupancy. With religious places of worship here in the city of East Point, you won't get a business license, but you will have to be issued a special use permit from the city, and you have to get a certificate of occupancy. So there are different scenarios. You come talk with us. We look at the type of business you're doing, and we completely explain your whole process to see if there's actually a business license that we must issue before you can start operating. On our application, we literally list the classifications of our business. It can be a residential or home-based business. It can be commercial. Insurance companies, we deal with those. Sometimes we have out-of-state contractors who are pulling permits with us, and perhaps their home base is in another state. We can work with them to try to get them a business license so they can pull permits. And then we have our short-term lodging, which are our whole house. Let's look at one requirement for home-based. With a home-based business, it has to be at a residential location, and you must live in the city of East Point, and you have to provide proof of residence for the city of East Point. And typically, if you look down at the bottom left-hand side here, I have a link to our home occupation ordinance, and this link will be available at the end of this process when this document is compiled, so you can click on it and you can look at it. It's very specific as to what's allowed in regards to our zoning ordinance. So let's just put a general statement. Typically, A home-based business for us, for the city of East Point, only allows for administrative services unless you are a approved, certified state of Georgia family daycare. Or in some cases, there's also, we can issue a business license for cottage services. Those are when you kind of have cupcakes and things like that. But you would have been issued a cottage license or an approval from, I believe it's the Secretary of Agriculture. So let's move on. If it doesn't fall into that category and you're at a commercial space, you must be issued a commercial business license or business license for the commercial space. That's also in harmony with our zoning ordinance. So let's say you want to go in a certain part of the city. When you're in that certain part of the city, we have to confirm that your business is in harmony with the ordinance in that location. For example, in our industrial area, you may not be able to put a certain type business, or in the residential area, you may not be able to put a certain type of warehouse. So you always check with us in this department, with our zoning department, to see if that type of business is allowed at your location. The next thing that's important, we're going to mention, if it's a commercial location, it also has to be issued a commercial certificate of occupancy. That's where the fire marshal and the building official has approved the location to be deemed safe and operable for employees and or the public. So that's one of the requirements. We'll get a little more in detail on that. Lastly, we'll look over here at the third category, our short-term lodging. The city of East Point allows basically Airbnbs, but it's in accordance with our zoning ordinance. And you are required to get a business license if you've been approved for a short-term lodging permit, and you are basically allowing your whole house to be used. If you're living inside of the home, it's called homestead, and you're also leasing out some of the rooms or Airbnb some of the rooms, you don't have to get a business license. But if you're doing a whole house short-term lodging, you also have to get a business license. So let's go into a little bit more details on this. All right, so let's get some specific examples. So we said at home base, you have to get a business license. It's pretty much administrative services. At your residence, if you have a family daycare, you will need a business license. If it's at a residence or you are a renter and you have 5 or more rental properties, residential, you also have to get a City of East Point business license. And of course, we mentioned if you're doing whole house short-term lodging at a residential location, you need a business license. Let's move over to our commercial column. Typically, this covers any type of commercial business, restaurant, retail, car washes, anything you can name. If you're doing any type of commercial business in the city of East Point, you need a City of East Point business license. We get this question a lot too. Well, what if I'm just the landlord of the building and I'm going to be leasing out my space to tenants? That landlord still has to get a City of East Point business license. It will be a landlord because he's still producing some type of income. He's transacting and doing business in the city of East Point. So he will be issued a certificate of occupancy for the landlord and a certificate of occupancy, well, a business license as the landlord. Now, what about tenants in a commercial space? Same thing. Any business at that location need their own certificate of occupancy and business license. So tenants of commercial buildings also get a business license. We might have someone say, well, I'm just going to buy this lot. It's clear cut and I'm allowed trucks to park on it. That's still a business at a location. Parking lots or uses of land where you are producing some type of income in the city of East Point, you will need a business license. Warehouses, they will need business license. Now, these are just examples we get. What we encourage you to do, come talk to us. We will gladly tell you whether you need a business license or not. All right, let's talk about our process. Very quickly, step 1. And I love the way this is laid out because I copied this directly out of an email from our business license coordinator. She's on here. She's wonderful and she's great. She'll get a chance to maybe answer some questions later, but I copied her outline. She always recommends, before you do anything, reach out to our zoning department to confirm that the location that you want to do business, that type of business is allowed by zoning. If it's not allowed by zoning, everything stops. We can't do anything because the use of the land is not allowed, or the use of the structure is not allowed until it's approved by zoning. So basically, you see step one, confirm with zoning. You go onto our website, you see how you can reach out to our zoning department. You can email them at zoning@eastpointcity.org, or you can give them a call at the number and choose option 4. Once you've confirmed that your use is allowed, you may want to build out your space. It may not be exactly the way you want it. It used to be a library and now you want it to be a restaurant. Well, you have another step. That step would be you have to change your space to what you want it to be. That will require permits and inspections to be approved before we can issue you a certificate of occupancy and a business license. Of course, the location is not operable yet, especially if you require permits. So you talk with us. If you're not moving as is and you are going to build out your space, we back up and we have to talk about your permitting process. You're getting some plans approved, we're getting your permits issued, and you're requesting inspections. And then when you get your building final approved by the chief building official, then we move on to our next step, which is the commercial certificate of occupancy. That's an official document that's issued by the fire marshal and the building official that basically allows for the space to, one, be used in accordance with our zoning ordinance, two, occupied and is safe for employees and or the public to be in the location. Lastly, after you get your certificate of occupancy, then you get down to the business license process. That's where you reach out to us. You'll submit it either via the portal or via email, and you will definitely be talking with our business license coordinator. But let's say you've confirmed with zoning that your use is allowed and you don't have to do any permits. Then you would go to your commercial certificate of occupancy process first. So you come and talk with us in the permit department. Our contact information is over there also. Phone number 404-669-4399, option number 3, or you can email us at permits@eastpointcity.org and we'll discuss your certificate of occupancy process first. But you have to be issued a certificate of occupancy for a commercial location. You might be asking, what about home-based? Of course, a chief building official and a fire marshal does not have to come to your private home, and we don't have to issue you a commercial certificate of occupancy if it's home-based. But it also lends itself as to the reason why it's typically only administrative services that can be done out of your home, because it will not be inspected. So if it's home-based, you skip 2 and 3 and you go to 4. Now you still may need to confirm with zoning or our business license ordinance, our zoning ordinance, whether or not what you want to do from your home is allowed. Let's move on. Our business license process, very simple. And once again, I piggybacked on what I usually see our business license coordinator email out. But after you've confirmed that zoning has approved it, your business is allowed to be there, and you've received your commercial certificate of occupancy, the next thing you do is download our business license application from our East Point website and you complete it. You fill it out and you complete it. Then you gather all of your supporting documents, and we'll talk about that on the next screen. You gather all of your supporting documents with your completed application, and then you submit it to us via email at bl@eastpointcity.org, or you upload it through our portal. Have the link here. You would request to register if you're going to do it through our portal, so we can create you an online account, and then we'll also show you how you can submit that. So let's get to the supporting documents. Well, initially, let's talk about, you want to get the first document is the business license application. We have a landing page, business license, and this is how it looks. Very simple. When you get to this page, and we'll do a walkthrough later, but when you get to this page, it's bold, new business occupation application. You click here, download it. You can even type it in online because it's a fillable PDF and then download it. Get the required signatures that you need so that you can either email it or upload it to the portal. Now, what about some of the documents you will need with this business license application? For all businesses, you'll need the business license application. You'll need proof of your ID. Let me go back, clicking too fast here. All right, go back to our screen. Sorry about that. You'll need proof of your ID. It could be a state issued ID, military ID, or federally issued passport. That's for all of the applicants that are listed on your business license application. Next thing, if you're doing business in the state of Georgia, you're also supposed to register your business with the state of Georgia. Every now and then, there's some caveats that you might not have to register. That may be with a sole proprietor type business, but even then it's very sticky. So what I recommend is that you reach out to us, you have a conversation with our business license coordinator, and she will confirm whether or not we'll need that registration with the Secretary of State's office for the state of Georgia. And if it's a commercial location we mentioned, you have to have your issued certificate of occupancy. So those are the requirements for every type of business. But then you might have some additional documents over here on the right. For example, if this is a home daycare in the state of Georgia, you have to be approved by Bright from the Start. So you'll need that certificate. If it's an apartment complex, the city of East Point also requires that those units within the apartment complex has to be individually inspected. So we have a multifamily inspection report that's required to be uploaded. If you are a restaurant or a food serving location, with the application and the ID and everything over here, you would have to turn in your Fulton County Health Department report. Or sometimes if it's like a fish market, it may not be the Fulton County Health Department, it may be the Department of Agriculture. And lastly, if you have a grease trap there from the city of East Point, you'll have to have a commercial pretreatment certificate. There are also certain professions or certain types of businesses where the state of Georgia requires that you have to have a license issued by them. We typically know of those. If you're a general contractor, you're an electrician, a plumber. If you're a doctor, you have to have a state license. If you're a lawyer, you have to have a state license. Funeral homes have to have state licenses. A car dealer, barbers, cosmetologists, tattoo artists. Also, with that, you have to have a body art permit. And there are other categories, but typically, if the state of Georgia requires that for you to do this type of business, within the state of Georgia, that you have to have passed some type of certification or get a permit or a license from them, we have to have that uploaded with your application before we can issue you your business license. So basically, again, you have to be in compliance with the state and or county before we can issue your business license. So we'll check that. If you're doing short-term lodging, again, you will have to get a permit from the city of East Point before we can issue you your short-term license or your business license. And that's only for whole house. What about nonprofit? With the application, you would turn in your 501c3 to show proof of your nonprofit status. That way we can calculate any fees accordingly. Typically, we won't calculate you based on gross because you're saying you're nonprofit, but there is a basic administrative fee that will be assessed. And lastly, I would mention for veterans within the city of East Point, they're totally exempt from the fees for a business license. However, for our veterans, they would need the total exemption form from the Veterans Association or the probate court. And if you need assistance on maybe where you can get that from, you just reach out to our business license coordinator and she can help any of our veterans so that we have that information so we don't assess any fees and we can issue your business license. Okay, if it's a commercial location, this is the commercial certificate of occupancy that you are required to have to show that your location has been inspected, it's in harmony with our zoning ordinance, and the building official and the fire marshal has signed off on it. That's why you see their names down in the bottom left or their name and the fire marshal in the bottom right. And it basically says that it's being used according to our zoning ordinance, it's been inspected, and it complies with all of the requirements for you to operate and be at that location. Once you pass that inspection and you get the certificate and you have your application and all your supporting documents, your ultimate goal is to get this. You've reached the finish line when we've given you this. And we ring a bell, we party, we congratulate you. We are so glad and we welcome you to the city of East Point. This is an example of our business occupational tax certificate, or for us, our business license. This is your goal. This is that Willy Wonka ticket. So that's an example of what you need. Now, that's a new process. Let's briefly discuss renewal. Basically, it's the same thing. However, you don't have to do a commercial certificate of occupancy because you're still at that location. So we don't ever have to renew your certificate of occupancy as long as your business is there. What we do here in the city of East Point, beginning in October through December, we will send you a courtesy reminder, mostly by mail, and sometimes we're able to send you an email. But we'll send you a courtesy reminder that we need for you to renew your business license, and we'll have the application attached with instructions. It will be enclosed. So you see over on the right, we literally have instructions laid out on how you can renew your business license. So again, you take the application, you gather your supporting documents, and then you submit the renewal through the portal. If you have any problems, you can also email it to us. But let's go over a few things with the biz renewal. I hope you can see over on the screen, if you can, each business license expires on December the 31st. You need to renew no later than March the 31st. But you also see we try to have a deadline of you getting the application back to us by February 1st so we can start processing. Perhaps you might be missing something. We'll let you know. But we need to finish your renewal process by March the 31st. After March the 31st, it's officially deemed late, and late fees and penalties can be assessed. We also like to remind everyone, our code enforcement department on April 1st, they get a report out of the system and they like to remind you too, but we'd rather you don't go that route because they might issue a citation. But take what we send to you in the mail, complete it, and email it to us. So that's our renewal process, pretty much. All right. I know we went through that briefly, but I like for it to be interactive. We like for it to be interactive. So now is Q&A time. It's wide open. You got questions, we got answers. So we can open the floor. Anyone have any questions? And if so, Yasmin, you'd like to explain maybe how they can do it? They can raise their hand and then we call on them.
Well, actually, people can unmute and
Okay,
just go
just
ahead
go
and
for
ask
it.
the question. Yeah, just go for it.
Okay. Any questions, anyone?
I have a question.
All right, go ahead.
Well, first, my name is Harper Cooper. I've been living in East Point for 5 years now. I have my crochet business called Marrakeches LLC. It's not a it's a physical business, but it's not one that requires me to get a business license. Actually, my mom sent me this and she's like, you need to join and network and ask questions. So I'm asking questions.
All
But
right.
my predominant question is, if I wanted to, for example, if I wanted to like rent out a studio space or something of that magnitude that's solely for crocheting or packing orders, would I be required to get a business license for that space that I'm renting?
We'll say the short answer is yes. Now, you're saying at a commercial location, you're going to rent out a studio space. Is that correct?
Yes, this is a hypothetical
Okay, I
question.
got it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Because you're still doing that type of business in the city, it will require that you be issued, one, a certificate of occupancy. That space will have to be inspected. And two, you'll have to be issued a business license for that. You would confirm, again, with zoning that wherever that suite is or that studio, that your crocheting type business is allowed there. So you're always able to find out first if it's even allowed. And if so, once you find out it's allowed, which we try to encourage, ask us first before you may, and I can't tell you what to do legally, but we've somewhat seen this before where a lease has been signed and a deposit has been put down. We can't tell you what to do, but I can encourage you, please confirm with zoning that you can put your business there first. That makes sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And that leads me to my second question. It's okay, like, that I crochet. I guess my business isn't one that would my business require a business license if I'm doing it out of home?
Okay, it's somewhat tricky, and you would have to look at our home occupation ordinance. It pretty much says administrative services, but it does allow that if you're doing this just incrementally, periodically, you're not storing your materials there, you're not being a nuisance and things like that, it may be allowed. But if you're having cars come by and park there, if it ends up being a nuisance, if it's more than, I think, 25% of a square footage, you may be triggering that you cannot do that at that location, at your home. Again, typically our home-based business only allows for maybe e-commerce, you sending out your administrative things, you're filing your papers and things like that, the way it's written.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Miss Miller, did I miss anything?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes. I think our original question was, is she currently required to have a business license based on her crocheting? And the answer to that would be, if you're generating revenue, you are most definitely required to have a business license within the municipality that you reside in. So if you currently reside in East Point, you're crocheting at the house, and the crochet items are being purchased, you
Okay.
are required to have a business license, because basically what your business license is a occupational tax. So it's just you paying taxes on your current revenue that you're generating to your local municipality.
Okay, thank you.
You're
All right.
welcome.
Thank you, Miss Miller.
Mhm.
And Terrence, you mentioned something about inspections. Could you go over that a little bit more? So if someone was wanting to open a business, what all or what exactly would they have to look forward to as far as the inspections piece?
Right. So this would be at the commercial location, correct?
Yes.
Covered. Okay. What that would entail would be the commercial certificate of occupancy. And what I can do, if you give me a moment, I'll share my screen and we'll look at the certificate of occupancy application because it explains a little bit of what they're looking for. And if we can just remember that because it's a commercial location, that they have to confirm that it's safe for the business to be there. So they'll be looking at things like your fire extinguishers, your exit signs, your lights. Can employees or people get out in case of emergency that's safe? Uh, how many people can be in it? Does it have sufficient parking for the type of business that you have? So that's a whole process with the commercial location. But it would be easier, and I'm going to pull up our commercial certificate of occupancy because on the third page of the application, it lists certain items. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, once again, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's just say you're looking for the commercial certificate of occupancy. I would say you would start off always with going to eastpointcity.org or eastpointgeorgia.gov. And from that homepage, if you got to this homepage, you want to go departments, then to planning and community development. And our certificate of occupancy is under our permitting section. So you go to permits and you're looking for the type of application. So you get to permits here and you would go to our applications page. We're scrolling down until we can find our commercial certificate of occupancy, and it's under a section called certificates. It's right here. This is the application that must be submitted, completed and submitted. So for commercial locations, you would complete this. We won't go into too many details of completing this because it could be various reasons why you have to complete this. But basically, if you're a commercial space, you'll have to turn this in. But it's also could be you built the space out, or it's new construction of a building, or it's a change of ownership, or you're a landlord. You can see those options on here. But again, to answer the question that Yasmin brought up, on the third page, it gives generalities of what they'll be looking for. On the left side, this is what the building official is looking for. Making sure that your construction permits have been closed out. Making sure there's no trash and debris, no abandoned vehicles. Making sure the exit doors and the required hardware is operable. That the electrical boxes are not missing any plates and there's no unsafe wires. So you see, their point is to make sure that the building is safe, the location's safe, making sure the heating and the plumbing is working. Then on the side for the fire marshal, they have their ordinances they must live by also. The exit doors, the exit lights, the emergency lights, the fire extinguishers, making sure the tags are up to date on the fire extinguishers, that they've been serviced, making sure the sprinkler system works if they're required to have sprinkler systems. The fire alarm system works if they're required to have a fire alarm, electrical panel. So they're looking at those kind of things. So when you turn in this application, and it has a fee for it, ultimately we'll issue you a certificate of occupancy certificate when you pass your inspections, but you'll turn the application in, pay the $115 for it, and that triggers our process of one, confirming that the use is allowed by zoning, two, scheduling your inspection for the fire marshal and the building official to actually come to your location, come inside of it, and see it in its condition that you would say it's supposed to be when you open. They want to see it being completely set up. I'll give an example. If it's a retail store, you don't have to have product on the shelves, but you do have to have your layout and you have to have your racking or your shelves in place and major equipment in place. Because again, they're looking for to make sure that you don't put a shelf blocking the back exit door so that if a fire happens, employees can't get out. So those are basically the safety matters that they'll be looking for in their inspection. Did that answer your question, Yasmin?
Yes.
Right. Anyone else have a follow-up on that? Perhaps the certificate of occupancy?
Is that only required for commercial or is it also for home based?
No, ma'am, it's not required for home base. We will not be coming by your personal property doing an inspection. So it's only required for commercial. Anyone else?
Someone did ask a question when they registered. The
Okay.
question was, my business license is approved for the city of Atlanta. Are there additional requirements for East Point?
So
So I'm guessing maybe they're getting at if they already have one for the city of Atlanta, would they have to, I'm assuming, go through the same process for us?
okay, now what will trigger you have to getting a business license for the city of East Point is if your place of business is located in the city of East Point, whether that's home base or commercial location. If it is, then as Ms. Miller explained, you're doing business and producing income in the city of East Point. So you would have to get the inspection through the city of East Point, and you'd have to get a business license through the city of East Point. Now, if your base location is still in the city of Atlanta, then we're not involved with that at all. You would still be getting your CO or their process or their business license from the city of Atlanta, and you'll be renewing it, your business license with them. Anything else?
Yes, this is Opie Franklin. I got a question,
Yes,
actually.
sir.
Um, did you mention the fees associated with these processes at all? I know I still have to wait for a second, but the fees associated. I know you said it was 115 for the application for a business license. Or...
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. We knew it was coming. Okay. So let's just say if it's a commercial location, you would have to get a commercial certificate of occupancy. For that process, it is 115. Now, the business license is typically calculated based on gross, but depending on the type of business, this can vary. What I'd like to share my screen, well, what I'd like to do is kind of put the equation that we have on our website. I'll go back to that on our share my screen. So again, from eastpointcity.org, you can go to departments, planning community development, and now you want to go to business licenses. So let's just assume you've gotten your certificate of occupancy. Here on the business license page, which will be your hub for your business license application and your renewal application, down below, it gives a general description or a layout of the fees that's associated. And typically it's based on gross unless you qualify for other type. And we can discuss that a little bit later when we're filling out the application. But I'm going to try to explain this, and Ms. Miller can correct me if I screw it up, but you will always have an administrative fee of $75. And then you will always have a flat tax of $50. Then, depending on the gross amount that you put on your application, it goes through a calculation. And so you'll have you see it over here, the calculation, it has an example of a flat tax plus the gross amount. And it's using the calculation of 500,000 that was given on the left-hand side. And so then it comes up with the fee, one part of the fee. Lastly, it's also based on the number of employees. So you'll see it has another part. If you have 4 employees there, it includes that's in a calculation, then you get a total. 75 plus the 50 plus the calculation for the gross and the number of employees. That's how your tax is configured and calculated. Now, let's just say typically starting off, you're always going to at least be 155 going up. Okay, that's the minimum out based on gross. But let's put this caveat in there. your gross is not based on what you net after you do your taxes. Some people like to tell us that, well, I didn't make any money. That may be true, but that's not how we're calculating. It's your gross. It's what you took in. That's how we have to calculate it. So you'll give us your gross, your number of employees, and then it calculates it that way. Ms. Miller, did I miss anything?
No, that was actually a good explanation, but the base administrative charges will come up to 155, Mr. Franklin. That's even without any gross and or number of employees. So whenever you're registering your business, let's say it's just you by yourself, you will be the one employee. So with that one employee, no gross receipts at all because you're a new business starting up, just your bare basic base charges, it will come to 155. Now, anything after that is calculated based on your gross receipts and number of employees, and also the type of business that you're actually producing. Now, let's say a corporation company like Walmart, for example, they're grossing millions a year. So of course, we're not gonna cap you at the millions that we're capping them at, but the state requires that we have to cap at the 3 million mark. So for whatever you're grossing, let's say you are Walmart and you're grossing 50 million a year, we only can tax you for the 3 million. We can't go beyond the 3 million. So either way, you will not be paying bukus of gross receipts and number of employees for a residential home business occupational tax license. In most cases, even on renewal, anything under 20,000 is still the bare minimum of the 155, and that's required for all businesses, home-based or commercial.
Okay. So, for instance, I'm a commercial property owner. My gross would be whatever I'm going to make total in the rental for that year. That would be my gross.
Yes.
Without-
So yes, let's say that my total amount that I, as your tenant, am paying you is 5,000 annually. You will be taxed on that 5,000. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, that's just for now those fees are just for the business license, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So in addition to, like, for instance, I have to apply for permits. So all those permits have their additional fees as well, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That would be separate, and that
Right.
you, being permits and business license manager, we can kind of discuss that, but that's not within the topic of the business license. But feel
Right.
free
No, I
to
understand.
talk to me after this, because that's in association with building code and our ordinance that based on construction value, the scope of work that you're doing, and things like that. So we would have to address the permitting separate.
Got you. Okay.
Get that issued, get your certificate of occupancy, and then you're back here with your business license process.
And I can't even apply for my business license until I've gone through all the permitting processes and I get the certificate of occupancy and all that. So this actually comes at the end of my process, right?
Correct. The business license is the finish line, because theoretically you can't be operable if you have to build out the space to get it to operate. Now, if you move in as is and you're not doing anything, and then you'll do a renovation later, that's different. But if you have to build the space out to operate your business, we can't issue you your certificate of occupancy yet, and we can't issue your business license because you're not operable yet.
Right. Okay. Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And there was a follow-up. The question was, is that calculated each year, which means it can be different each year?
Yes. It's actually calculated based on your annual gross receipts. So whatever your gross is as of or after December 31st of that particular year, that ends your annual year, December 31st. So we will need those, and that's why we give the extension time of March 31st, because we actually give you time to go ahead and do your taxes. Most people, small business owners, they really don't know what they grossed until their accountant came in and did the paperwork or whatnot. And we don't really micromanage and say, hey, give me your tax returns. We don't need your tax returns. We're trusting that you're giving us the correct gross receipt amounts as of December 31st. So if you're renewing or you're applying for 2026, what you would give me is what you gross as of December 31st, 2025. And you will give me the number of employees that you had then. If you're moving over from the city of Atlanta, let's say last year your business was over in the city of Atlanta and now you've moved over to East Point. I don't need to know what your gross were last year in the city of Atlanta, because that does not apply to the city of East Point. That revenue was generated in the city of Atlanta, not East Point. So we will start if you're moving over to East Point, we will start from the date of that application until December 31st.
And we'll get more into that when we can kind of look at the application and walk through that a little bit, and we'll look at a new versus a renewal. But right now we can still continue with some questions if anyone has any. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
So if I am moving out of East Point next year for school, would I have to apply for a business license in the state that I would be living in for school, even if I'm only living there for school?
If you're not doing business in that state, you probably wouldn't, but reach out to wherever that municipality is. And if you're doing business in that municipality, you have to reach out to their department and see what their requirements are.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have just a quick question. This is Mr. Franklin again. Did you mention the fee, the annual fee for renewal for the business license?
And then calculated.
Yeah, the annual fee. I saw, that I guess that's the initial business license fee, but the annual, you got to renew it every year.
Okay.
And what's that based off of? The renewal fee, each year? Is that a calculation as well, or is that the renew, or is that it? Every year you have to do go through the same business license process with the gross receipts, et cetera. That's the annually you have to.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
okay.
But
Okay.
you would give the amount that you grossed the previous year.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a little different from Fulton County. Okay. All right. So that's an annual fee.
Right.
Okay.
You have to renew. What
Right.
happens is you have to renew your business license yearly,
Right.
and we have to calculate that occupational tax.
Right.
And so if based on your type of business is based on the gross, you have to give us the gross so we can calculate that tax, and that's your fee for your business license.
East Point, something else. Okay. I get
Wait a minute now, Mr. Franklin. We're all cordial here now.
Trust me, Mr.
Yeah,
Franklin. Once you come in, you will have a different thought. Trust me. You will come in this door and you will leave out the door. You'll come in thinking one way and leave out the door thinking another. Come see me when you get a chance, Mr. Franklin. I'm gonna walk you through this process.
Y'all are all wonderful people. I'm sure y'all didn't create this process, but East Point, has a tender reputation for being, a little stringent sometime when it comes to this process. So, but I'm sure y'all know that at this point.
We're here to make it a whole lot easier for you, and contrary to popular belief, we're here to change the whole narrative. So we're aware, but we're here to change it.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Do y'all do similar seminars on like the permitting process, certificate of occupancy, and all that good stuff? Because this is just a business license process, but for us, some of us business owners, it can get pretty in depth when it comes to this entire process. Like I said, this is the end of the process for me. But long before that, I have many permits and inspections to go through. So do they do seminars for those as well?
We just started this off as of last month,
Oh,
and we have more to go. However, what you would get in that seminar, like, just come to the office and talk with us and we'll explain it to you.
Will
If we
do.
don't have the seminar there yet, come and talk to us.
Will do. I appreciate it. Thank
No
you.
problem. Anyone else?
Someone else who registered did ask about commercial property rental. Could you touch on that a little bit and how what has been discussed is applicable in those situations?
Without knowing the details, or anyone here who's attended, did you pose that question and can go in a little bit more detail? If not, I can only give generalities. Don't think so. Okay, so commercial rental property, and we're assuming that perhaps you're acting as a landlord. And let's say you get a building and your tenant who's going to come in is going to actually be retail. So it's still a commercial property and you just so happen to be renting it out. We still have to issue you as the landlord a commercial CO, and we have to issue you a business license. And like we discussed before, I think with one of the examples, I think Mr. Franklin said, well, if my tenant paid me $5,000, then that's what you will be reporting on your business license application of what you grossed. Now, your tenant inside of your building, who may be, we said they were retail, they may make 20,000. Well, they would report something different when they're doing their business license application. So essentially, every business at a location has to have its own certificate of occupancy and business license. So the landlord has to have its own CO and business license, and or the tenant has to have its own CO and business license. Well, let's say this is a business complex. The owner owns a business complex that has 10 suites, and each of the 10 suites might be different types. We can pick Camp Creek Marketplace, for example. One suite might be retail, another suite might be clothing or Lowe's, or I'm picking, something like that. Another suite might be this, and another suite might be that. Well, we still have a landlord CO for the whole business complex that has to do their own business license. And then each one of those businesses there also have to do theirs. Did that cover your question, Yasmin?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. If not, we will look over the actual business license application. Yeah, we'll go from there. I'll share my screen. So let's say, for example, as we were talking, you wanted to apply for your business license and we got past the commercial certificate of occupancy. You've been issued that. You applied for it, you came, you talked with us, we got you that through that process. You applied for your business license and we got past the commercial certificate of occupancy. You've been issued that. You applied for it, you came, you talked with us, we got you that through that process. You've gotten all your inspections. Again, I would say you always want your hub to be starting off with the City of East Point website. So I'm going to start off with there. We'll go back to departments, planning, community development. And here we could say business licenses. Right up front, we'll start with our new business license occupation application. Since we have a little time, we can actually go through and discuss this, and perhaps we can open the floor through questions as we go through. But our application is very simple from our point of view. But if we need to explain it, we can. And Ms. Miller is excellent at explaining this application. So to help you out, so when you're ready to open your business, we'll walk through it. The application is broken up into sections. There's an application portion. There's this business information portion, part 2. There's the applicant information, part 3. Three and 4. And then when we get to 5, it's how we're calculating your fee. So it's the occupational tax fee. Now this breaks up into several sections, and we'll talk about that later, but then you basically just have your calculation portion. Lastly, in the state of Georgia, we're required that we also have to make sure that you file with E-Verify. And it's basically based on the number of employees you have. And when we get to this section, we'll talk about it. But you have your E-Verify section, and then you sign it. That's the application. So it's a total of 4 pages, but we'll walk through it now. And if you have any questions throughout, we can make it interactive as we go through it. And Yasmin, you'll just have to kind of let me know if someone raises their hand. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Miller, you jump in anytime if I forget something. So let's go back to the application information. You simply tell us, why are you submitting this? Is this a new business? Is it the same business, but it's moving from one location within the city of East Point to another location? Are you simply asking us to reprint a copy for you? Has the ownership changed of the business, but it's the same location? Or has the name changed? Providing this information to Ms. Miller helps her to figure out how to process this. The next thing, as we did before, showed on the screen, give us the classification for this business license. Is this residential, commercial? Are you an insurance company? Are you an out-of-state contractor? Or is this for short-term lodging? Then simply give us the year. Let's say if this is your first year, we're going to say 2005. And actually, I can complete this since it's fillable. We'll say new business license starting, commercial, is for the year 2025. We get to the business information section. This is the name of your business that is registered with the Secretary of State's office. And also that same name is supposed to be what's on your certificate of occupancy. So all 3 of those should match. What's registered with the Secretary of State's office? Now, Ms. Miller is very thorough. And if there's some discrepancies there, she has to make sure this is correct. So if you have registered with the Secretary of State's office, incorporated, but then on here, it's sole proprietor, she's going to give you a call and you have to have a meeting of the minds, because that's not what we have. We have to remember what you're submitting has to be in compliance with what you submitted to the state also. So we're going to.
And can I just chime in on that, Terrence?
Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of sole proprietorship, the misconception is that as sole proprietorship, you do not have to register with the Secretary of State's office, which is absolutely correct. As sole proprietor, you do not have to register with the Secretary of State's office, because as sole proprietor, you're only being allowed to do business as your government name. So if I'm Tanya Miller as sole proprietor, I can't do business as Tanya Miller's Tie Shop LLC. One, I'm not an LLC because I'm not registered with the Secretary of State. My name is not Tanya Miller Tie Shop. My name is just Tanya Miller, which that's what sole proprietorship is. However, I could do business as sole proprietor up under Tanya Miller's Tie Shop if I'm registered with the county clerk's office as a DBA. So if you want to do sole proprietor without registering as the Secretary with the Secretary of State's office, you can do that, but it has to be up under your government issued name. If you want to do it as a different name other than your biological name, then you will have that registered as a DBA with the county clerk's office. And they give you like a little certificate where it's stamped, and we will request a copy of that. Otherwise, sole proprietorship is only your name.
Thank you. So, because I don't want Tanya getting me straight, I'm going to actually put sample business license, and I'm going to put what it is. It's an LLC.
Okay.
You put the address of the business. This obviously has to be the address within the city of East Point. And we're just going to use 2757 East Point Street. We'll say Georgia. If the mailing address is different than the business address and you want our correspondence to go to your mailing address, you need to list that here. Otherwise, all of our correspondence and your renewal is going to be mailed at the business address. Here, if you're actually leasing and you don't own, you'll say check leasing. If you own it, you just give us your property owner information. We kind of know it, but if you're leasing, we need the property owner's information. This is the business phone number. All right, a required field. This is your, okay. This is the phone number for the building owner. Sorry about that, thanks. So it's under the leasing office. So if it's for the building owner, you give the phone number for the building owner. Now, back down to the federal tax ID number. Ms. Miller, make sure I'm correct. This is required.
That is absolutely required, yes. Otherwise, only if you're doing business as sole proprietorship, you're also allowed to do business under your social security number. However, I do see 9 out of 10 clients will still have an EIN number registered with the federal government, but if not, you do have the option to use your social security number as sole proprietorship. But as a registered LLC, incorporation, LP, or anything of that nature, federal tax ID is required.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Then here we want the date that you actually started at that location. So we're going to say today. Here you'll list the type of ownership, as Ms. Miller mentioned. Tell us you're a sole proprietor, your partnership, your corporation. I said it was an LLC, so I'm going to go here. In the description, be as detailed as possible. Tell us the services you're providing and the type of business there. This should also be in harmony to what you listed on your commercial certificate of occupancy. I'm just going to use our building here as an example. Commercial building, municipal. All right, so then we're going to go, this is applicant information. This is your information as the applicant. This is your personal information. Ms. Miller will reach back out to you if you turn around and give the same information that you gave for the business if it's not a sole proprietor. She's going to tell you, I need your personal information. We're asking that you please provide us your email address. Sometimes we get applications without an email address and it limits our communication. We can definitely send you invoices via your email. We'll try to reach out to you and give you renewals via email, but we can only do that if you provide an email. So if you are a partner, this is the section where all of your partners or officers or other owners have to list their information. And if they're listed here, you also need to upload a copy of their ID when you submit this. We're going to say I was the only employee, so we're going to keep on going. Now, this is the section where we're talking about the calculation of the fees. We're going to assume, for this example, that we're going to go off of gross. We'll check, okay, I want this to be calculated based on my gross. Our ordinance allows that if this is your first year, as Ms. Miller mentioned before, and let's say we're starting this business in September, then if you don't have any hard, fast numbers, you give based on an honor system, what you're estimating you're going to gross from, let's say, September the 17th, 2025 through December the 31st. This is your first year, so that's the only thing you can give us. And let's say we're going to assume that we're going to make 10,000 this year, and I'm the only employee. Sometimes we'll get 0. You cannot give us 0. Even as the business owner, there's at least has to be you as 1. Correct, Ms. Miller?
Yes.
All right. Now, remember, we said this was based on an honor system. Typically, by our ordinance, since we are saying it's based on gross, if ever we need to, Ms. Miller can request a copy of your tax returns. She rarely does if the numbers make sense. If the numbers don't make sense, she says, okay, you're going to have to give me your tax returns. Something's not adding up. But typically, you waive it. If you're turning this in and it's reflective of what you really make, you would say, no, I don't have my tax return attached. And if you select that option, you have to initial each one of these. So read through them and you initial them. And it's basically saying that based on the honor system, we're trusting you and you're turning in everything you should. But you have to acknowledge that the city reserves the right under penalty of perjury to conduct an audit if something's not making sense.
Wow. Y'all auditing people, folks too?
Now, didn't we say we rarely ever have to do this? Ever.
And we will only be asking for your previous year tax return if, and to be honest, Mr. Franklin, that's if we're, and believe it or not, people do it. If we're seeing that you're reporting 0 gross receipts for the last 5 years. Based on our ordinance, we typically go back the last 3 years. So you're telling me you are a productive, active business, but you have not generated any revenue for the last 3 years, then that would be a red flag to say, okay, well, let me see your tax returns. We would need copies of the tax returns to verify that and confirm it.
Okay, but again, in my case, I'm not gonna make any money because I'm like renovating the property.
Right.
And it's gonna take forever to do it. And I'm not making any money because I can't use the units as rentals. Then what do I put for my income?
You will put 0 starting off. You can start off at 0 because you're just not coming in. So let's say if you applied today, like Terrence was saying, September 17th until December the 31st, you're not
Terrence
expecting
told me I
for.
couldn't use 0. Terrence just said he don't use 0.
No, you can use 0 as coming in because you're not projecting to make any revenue before December the 31st. Don't put 0 employees because you technically will be the employee. If you have no others, you are the employee.
Okay, so the first year I can put 0 if I know I'm not gonna make any money.
Yes, sir. So if you're starting right now and you know that your project won't even be done and your business will not be operable until February of next year, I need to know what you're generating between today and December 31st, which will be nothing.
Okay, well, I might put a negative number there, but that's all right. Maybe.
Okay.
It would be accurate though, but you can't put nothing negative though. That would probably be where I'll be. It'll be negative.
Yeah, I can tell you're a little different, Mr. Franklin, but that's okay. I'm ready for you.
Y'all might y'all gonna owe me money my first year, but that's all right. Excuse me, y'all. I'm off.
Okay. Anyone else is this making sense to anyone else thus far? Any questions about this?
We do have a question in the chat. Do you
Okay.
all recommend we file for this year or wait until 2026?
Now, that's a good question. Of course, we're going to say we recommend that you file this year if you're generating revenue this year. And I say that because based on your business, we are planning community and development. We're not code enforcement. Based on your business, they can citate you. So let's say code enforcement pulls up on you right now and they find that you're out there generating revenue. They're going to ask you, hey, if you're a commercial location, do you have your CO? Do you have your business license? No, but you're generating revenue. That's a citation that has, we don't issue the citations. So therefore they will be totally addressed with the court, by the court. But we do have several clients that do that and say, hey, well, I was going to wait till the beginning of the year. Y'all don't start code enforcement. We didn't send them. That's their job. They come out, check the code and the compliances. And if you are operating and generating revenue without a business license or CO, they will issue you a citation. So yes, if you're, I would say the answer to that is we like Tamara said earlier, we can't legally of it all. And if you're not generating revenue, you're not selling product. Let's say Harper she's over there knitting and stuff, but she's not actually selling anything. There's nothing to report. She's not making any money. She's not generating revenue at all. She does not technically have an operable business. In this case, she only has a registered business, but she's not generating revenue. So I wouldn't say that she would need to run and get a business license right now. She's just over there knitting right now, not actually selling. But when the revenue start coming in, that's most definitely when the occupational tax is required.
Did
You
that
heard
answer
that,
your
Mr.
question?
Franklin?
I'm listening. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We'll talk. Ms.
Okay.
Miller. We'll talk.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? Now, I do want to mention something. That's your business license. However, and we're not going to pick on you, Ms. Harper, but let's say you are in that location and you're knitting. Don't forget that there is a certificate of occupancy. The fire marshal and the building official still basically, I'm going to say crocheting. I saw that when the chat. We apologize. We know there's a difference. So we want to make sure it's right, Ms. Harper. Forgive us. Crocheting, if the location hasn't been inspected, even though you might not be generating revenue, but you're somewhat operating, you still need the fire marshal and the building officials to say that it's safe for you and or your employees to be working out of that location. So just remember that. You still want to come and talk to us if it's a commercial location. All righty. Let's say you are a lawyer, architect, dentist, embalmer, one of these options, and you want to elect not to have this calculated based on your gross. You can opt to do a professional fee. That's an option only for certain fields, and it's listed in our ordinance, and we have some of them listed here, but we have to confirm that you can do that. What you will have if you select this option, and Ms. Miller will kind of double check and go over it and make sure you can, but the number of professionals at your location who actually have a professional license, each one of them qualifies for the $400 fee for it. Am I correct on that, Ms. Miller? Okay. If you choose to say you want to have it calculated based on the number of professionals at their location,
Yes.
if there are 2 doctors at the location, then it's $800, correct?
Yes. The ordinance most definitely reads 400 per professional. So let's say you're a doctor's office and you have 2 professionals, it most definitely would be 800. And I would need a copy of each professional's license that is operable at that location. When I say license, I mean their medical license, their state issued license. In most cases, if you don't have it and you provide their names and they're registered in the state, I can kind of look it up. I can work with you on that, but it is the applicant's requirement to make sure that we have that of all applicants. So and I try to explain that in its entirety because a lot of them think that it's just a flat 400 fee. Again, it's 400 per professional. So you want to keep that in mind when you're opting in for that $400 fee, because it may be a little less expensive to just calculate the gross receipts and number of employees.
There's an option. So you have based on the number of professionals there, you have based on gross. If you're an insurance company, this is typically for our out-of-state insurance companies. We have our out-of-state contractors option. Short-term lodging, which we discussed, if you're doing an Airbnb and you are allowing your whole house to be used, you would also have to get a business license from us. You can select that option. That has a different calculation. So it's not one of the above. Again, nonprofit. For nonprofit, we can't calculate anything based on gross. We can't tax you because you are approved and acknowledged as being a nonprofit. However, you must give us proof of that. So you have to provide your 501c3, and then you'll just have the regular $75 processing fee. And basically, if you're exempt, and we gave one example of those who are exempt completely are veterans. So they would also check this option, say they're a veteran, and then give proof of them being a veteran and still complete the application, but we can't assess any fees for veterans. If we move on, this is E-Verify. If I can give a short version, Georgia requires that we report to them that based on the number of employees that you have, you're making sure that everyone is a documented worker. I'm basically going to say it. That's really what it is. And if the number is 10 or more, you need to have your business do an E-Verify in harmony with Georgia requirements. And once you E-Verify with them, they'll give you a number, an identification number. You'll put it here and you'll have your date of authorization. If you have 10 or less employees, you don't have to register with E-Verify. So you'll select option B. I'm going to do that here because we said up above I only had one employee. So here I can go with that. I complete this to say everything I'm saying in regards to E-Verify is true. So I sign this and complete this section. Lastly, I get down to where I sign the application. Basically, this says the whole application is true. I'm being honest. I'm turning this in. Once you sign this, that's it. You've completed your business license application. Now, since we went over the application, do we have any questions about anything in regards to the application? Anything, Ms. Miller, you want to add?
No, everything sounds good. Once we receive this application, I'm going back to what Terrence was saying from the beginning. All applications are required to have that current LLC, and it has to be current. So the current year is 2025. We can accept LLC that was registered in 2019 but never renewed. So those LLCs in your Secretary of State's registration, they are annually renewed also. So we need, and we have to be in compliance with the state and federal laws, and then municipality. So we would need the current year registration. We would need a copy of the applicant's ID. Those are your main three requirements from the beginning. And then if based on what your actual business is, there may be other requirements. Sound like Mr. Franklin may be involved in landlord, tenant, real estate, or something of that nature. If, let's say, you are a landlord, you are required to have a business license. If of a commercial, let's say a strip mall, you would be required to have your business license, and then each one of your tenants that you rent out to would be required to have their business license and certificate of occupancy, which is totally separate from yours. If you are renting out residential homes, now, if you only have one home in the city of East Point that you're renting out to a tenant, you are not required to have a business license. If you have more than 5 rental properties in the city of East Point, you are required to have a business license. Multifamily, if you have an apartment complex that has 4 or more units, you are required to have a business license and a third-party multifamily inspection report. We do not, the city does not come out and do the multifamily inspection code compliance reports. That would be a third party of your liking. But in most cases, once I receive the initial application, the current registration from the Secretary of State, the copy of your ID, then I'll review the application. Once I review the application, if I need anything else, I'll reach out to you and say, hey, I need that multifamily inspection report. I need that Fulton County Health Inspection report because you're a restaurant, or whatever other requirement that I need. And typically that's done within 24 to 48 hours. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than that, I think Terrence explained the application really well. So if anybody have any last minute questions for me, I'm here for the next few minutes.
All right, thank you. Since we were right there and we were looking at applications, I want to show you what the renewal application looks like. And if you've done your new, the renewal is easy for you. So we'll go back to our page. Remember, our base page for everything business license initially for applications is at the business license landing page. eastpointcity.org, departments, planning, community development, business licenses. Well, when you're getting to your renewal, if you don't get this in your mail, which you should, we try to send out a courtesy reminder. But I want to mention this. It is a courtesy. Please forgive us if for some reason U.S. Postal Service didn't get it to you, and which we have a lot. We're getting a lot of returned mail. However, it doesn't negate that you have to renew by March the 31st, and you have to turn in the application. So sometimes we might hear, well, I didn't get my reminder. And we try to use a soft landing. We'll try to say, you might not have gotten your renewal of your tag reminder, but that won't stop that police officer from giving you a citation, because we all know you have to renew your license. So in accordance with our ordinance, you have to renew at the end of December 31st. If you hadn't gotten a reminder, I would say come see us or email us or turn it in. Just go to our website, get the renewal application here, and get started on the process. And once again, we're stating it literally explains the process on the renewal application. So you can read through it. It's very simple. But if we scroll down, you'll start to notice, wow, it looks very similar to the new application. Not much changes. So, Mr. Franklin, that definitely helps out. You're just basically telling us you're renewing, or you may be renewing with a name change. And we'll check a name change where simply you've just maybe decided to change your name with the Secretary of State's office, but your tax ID number is the same and it's still the same business. That may officially be a name change, and we might just need to update something. But if in fact, especially the tax ID number changes, that's a new business for us. If in any kind of way you're including extra services that's not on your certificate of occupancy, we need to talk about that. That may be a new business license. But if everything stays the same, then this is simply a renewal. You'll tell us whether it's residential, commercial, out-of-state insurance, or short-term lodging. If you just so happen to maybe forget in 2024, and now you remember and you're coming back and you're like, hey, I forgot, things happen. I didn't renew in 2024, so I need to renew 2024 and 2025. You just let Ms. Miller know that you want to renew for 2025 and 2024, and she's able to go back and calculate that for 2024 so that you can come up into compliance. She can't give you 2025 unless she goes back and calculate what you were supposed to pay for 2024. And that's just so happened, things happen. Perhaps you forgot. We have to bring you up into compliance. I do want to state this. Every now and then we come across at a renewal, someone says, I completely did no business at all. Things happen. I did no business. Have a conversation with Ms. Miller. She'll dig a little deeper, because if you still were at that location, in order to get in compliance, we still might have to show you didn't gross anything, but the business was still operable. Whether you did anything gets very technical. If you did not give us a letter of termination or proof that you were not at that location, if you come back and say, I just want to renew, and you skipped a couple of years and then said, well, I really didn't do anything, that's very hard for us to legally put that on paper. The only way we can do it is to just basically give you the basic fee if you didn't gross anything and bring you up into compliance if you cannot show, especially with a termination. And you can talk with Ms. Miller if you decide, like maybe Ms. Harper said, I'm going to go out of state, so I'm going to stop my business in the city of East Point for 2 years. She can submit to Ms. Miller a business termination letter or whatever that's required by her. And Ms. Miller has a way of going into the system and saying, we're terminating this, so that we won't be saying you owe us for a occupational tax. But if not, we just move on forward. We bring you up into compliance. You give us the same business name. Let us know the basic information. The applicant is still the same typically, but sometimes for large corporations, and we'll pick on Walmart since we've mentioned them before, their accounting office, the person in the accounting firm may be different. So it may be a different applicant submitting on behalf of them. So we might have a different applicant name, but it's very short. And then again, we're back to just tell us how we're supposed to be calculating this. We're going to look at if we calculated you based on gross last year, typically you'll do the same thing this year. If it was any other option, again, professional license, nonprofit or exempt, check the same options. Make sure you're still in compliance with the E-Verify, sign it, turn it in. So once again, if you went through the new business license process, this application is very similar, and you will be able to breeze through completing this and getting it to us also. Any questions?
Did you mention the penalties surrounding being late or anything of that nature? Yeah.
No, I didn't mention that because we're assuming that you won't be late. No, I'm just we're trusting all of you all. We know you're fantastic at this. No, it's calculated based on our ordinance. We can look that up. And when we have the link to the ordinance, it actually goes in there and it has a basically on penalties. Now, there are two different type of penalties. Let me mention this. There's penalties based on if you're way overdue and you didn't renew. It actually says about 90 days. It could be 0.5% of some kind of calculation that's added to the actual business license fee. Again, that is separate from the fact that if code enforcement on April 1st stops by and says you're not in compliance and they issue citations, then at that point, you're dealing with the court. And court fees are based on how the judge deems it's in accordance with court ordinances, which doesn't negate you still have to be in compliance, which means you still have to come and renew your business license. So we're almost begging and pleading that when we send out the reminder in October and we give you all the way up into March, just come and we'll make this process easy for you.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. You see, Mr. Harper.
Yeah, that doesn't quite answer the question, but
Well, I can't calculate it that one because it's based on a
but it's a
fee.
calculation. That's a calculation as well. So
It is, and
a
what
lot
we
of
said was
calculation.
we can pull it up in the ordinance and see how it's calculated. We'll try to get that to you in an email.
If it's any type of help to you, Mr. Franklin, we kind of paused that at the beginning of COVID. So we put a pause on the late fees and penalties that would have been applied from the Planning and Community Development Department. However, that's I don't want you to misinterpret the late fees as your citation fees, because those are totally different, and those come along with the actual citation and are addressed by the court. But as far as the late penalties that are issued here, let's say the deadline is March 31st, April 1st, your invoice won't be any different. Technically, it really wouldn't be different based on the way our ordinance is written until after late July.
Okay, so y'all will send out I guess the code enforcement people, they'll be triggered and then they'll come out and then they'll issue you a citation which will trigger you to come in and make it happen. So either way, there's going to be a penalty. It's just going to
that it may be a citation and a fine attached to that citation, but we do not trigger code enforcement. The deadline on most tax renewals, whether it's property taxes, commercial pre-treatment taxes, occupational taxes, and within the city of East Point, the deadline is March 31st. So code enforcement automatically separate and start moving around, checking compliances as of April 1st. They may not make it to your location April 1st. They may not make it to your location until May 1st. But if it's past that March 31st deadline, they start moving around starting April 1st.
Okay. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Miller,
Mhm.
for being transparent. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And just so I know, because personally, with my business, I'm gonna be renting office suites. I'm gonna have a commercial. I have a commercial building. In fact, Mr. Terrence, I think I met you before. You're a very nice gentleman, and thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Um, so just so I know, if I'm renting separate office suites and I get a certificate of occupancy, my business license, et cetera, and all the folks who rent from me, they need a business license and they need a certificate of occupancy. So if they're not, but even if they're not changing their footprint, if they're keeping it as an office, they still need to get a certificate of occupancy, and which comes with the inspection as well. So everyone has to get the property inspected, even though I have a certificate of occupancy in their office suites.
That's a very good question. The answer is yes, but I'd like to show you why. It's literally in our ordinance that states for a certificate of occupancy, any change of business or a business that goes in needs its own inspection. I can explain why, even though as the landlord, Mr. Franklin, you may be saying nothing has changed, but when your tenant comes in, like I said, they could literally push a shelf and block the back exit door. Unbeknownst to you, that becomes a fire code violation, and it puts employees and or people in a hazard. So anytime a new business comes in, they have to get their own certificate of occupancy. And basically it just triggers the chief building official and the fire marshal to come out. And at that time, while they're there, they are making sure that it's in compliance, and they'll issue it to that business. So when a new owner comes in and changes it, if they leave everything alone, great, they should just pass the inspections. But what happens is over years and over time, we all know sometimes in the storage room, people pack things and block the electrical panel. Well, since we hadn't come out and looked, typically the fire marshal may just come out and do sprinklers, but when a new business comes in, now they'll come in and say, wait a minute, you need to move all of these boxes out of this storage room, and they get their own certificate of occupancy. So yes, every business has to have its own CO and its own business license.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a follow-up on that?
And since we are a little bit over time, Terrence and Miss Tanya, if y'all have any final thoughts or advice to the folks that have joined us today, you can definitely share.
All I want to do is say thank you. We very much appreciate everybody. This was our first one. We're in harmony with Mr. Franklin. We're going to put other things in place. We want your feedback. Ms. Yasmin, our project manager, she's going to be reaching out on surveys or any kind of feedback. You can let us know. Come by and see us. We'll be happy to see you. Hopefully we can remember all your names. I want to thank each one: Cooper, Mosley, Franklin. I'll say royally, so I won't mispronounce that one. Thank you all. We very much appreciate it. That's all I have.
And I just want to pin it back off that myself. I thank you all for joining. This has been informative for me as well. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you soon. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free. You can email me at tmiller@eastpointcity.org. BL as in business license at eastpointcity.org, or you can come see me Monday through Friday from, I would say 9 a.m. Come see me starting at 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And I will be here to be, and I'm more than grateful to help any of you with the process. I typically try to tell everybody I'm, in most cases, the first person you see and the last person that you'll see. And I do have a bell here that I will ring once you are in full compliance. So thank you all, and I hope you all be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes. And this recording will be sent to everyone, so you can reference it again in the future, along with the presentation as well. Yes. All right. Well, thank y'all again for joining us. And we look forward to hopefully working with you all in the very near future. All right. Thank y'all.
Okay.
Thanks.